Welcome to the Stainless Souls Podcast, brought to you by the Realization of Stainless Souls, a come-as-you-are church of recovery and discovery. Today is Episode 3, Why Stainless Souls? I am your host, Bob Hobbs. Why stainless souls? Why would we be founding a church called Stainless Souls now in the 21st century? And that's a really good question. Why? Why would we have to? Why would we consider it? What about our society is not working? That an electrical engineer with an MBA gets ordained and founds a church. I think that we're at a time in society that is, from everything I understand about history, relatively unique. We have an unusually high number of people suffering with an unusually high intensity. And the suffering that I am specifically addressing is not physical in nature, but mental and emotional. And although it might not be perceived in the mainstream at this time to be on equal footing with mental or emotional, I could add spiritual. You could argue that, well, a non-spiritual person cannot suffer from spiritual pain, or someone who doesn't realize that they have a spiritual dimension to their being wouldn't be suffering from spiritual pain. Or maybe as a society, because we don't acknowledge spirituality and spirit as a potential source of pain, then we shouldn't address it because we don't have it. We don't have spiritual pain. I think it's obvious in the tracking of American society over the course of my lifetime, at least, 1966 until 2019, that there has been a diminishing level of aggregate spirituality. And that goes hand in hand with a diminishing level of participation in aggregate with religion. And I think that too often we have confused what religion is and what spirituality is. And as a society, because we don't agree with certain religious tenets or precepts, that certain religious teachings or ideas are false or hurtful. And so the whole spiritual dimension of humanity and of individual humans becomes more and more diminished. For us here at the Realization of Stainless Souls, a come-as-you-are church of recovery and discovery, we are addressing a fairly specific segment of society. And this segment of society might be considered to at one time to have been ordinary, meaning no extraordinary issues mentally or emotionally that cause suffering. But then at some point, due to life circumstances or life experiences, something happened that changed their lives from ordinary, and some of you might use the word normal, but I hesitate to use that word, but from ordinary to extreme suffering. And the conditions that we address specifically are addiction, particularly opioid-related addictions, codependency, and particularly codependency around addictions, trauma, and the disorder known as PTSD, suicidal ideation, and homelessness. And all of these conditions, for the most part, are not the result of the genes or the DNA or the biochemistry of the body when it was born. They are the result of something happening either one time or over the course of a lot of time that changed the behaviors, the emotional state, the mental state of that person. And they would no longer be considered ordinary anymore in society because of those changes. So certainly there are emotional and mental disorders that individuals in society have that are as a result of the biochemistry at birth. So, let's say schizophrenia, multi-personality disorders, some bipolar disorders, attention deficit and attention deficit hyperactive disorders, where, medical intervention with pharmacology is required, and probably for the life of that individual, regardless of their spirituality or the number of psychologists or psychiatrists that they see. And here at the Realization of Stainless Souls, we don't address those very clearly identified medical situations. For us, it is here are human beings who are suffering specifically because of life circumstances, life experiences. And we are focused on providing a path for these individuals to overcome that suffering and to be stronger once they are well than they were prior to whatever event or events led to their suffering. So just to throw some numbers out there for you, I think it's well known that there's 72,000 accidental overdose deaths each year in the United States. There's another 45,000 successful suicides in the United States, and that's out of probably 220,000 valid attempts at suicide each year. The number of addicted is in the range of 20 to 60 million. And just using that same number, that's how many codependents there are if each addicted person has one codependent. There are 8 million people suffering with PTSD knowingly, and that doesn't mean they know what it is. That just means that they have been diagnosed with PTSD. There's an unknown number of people who actually have the condition, but they don't know it. And there's 555,000 or so homeless people each and every night. And the binding condition of all of these conditions, in our view, is hopelessness. And hopelessness can lead to helplessness. And hopelessness and helplessness combined lead usually to a premature exit from this manifestation or this incarnation. So what's a society to do? 20 to 60 million addicted, 72,000 die each year, 20 to 60 million codependent who develop some other type of condition as a result of codependency, 219,000 suicide attempts a year, 45,000 are successful, 8 million people at least suffering with PTSD, many more not diagnosed, going through life miserably, unknowing that they have a treatable condition that is the result of a life circumstance or life experience that was outside of their control by definition. And 550,000 homeless Americans every night, all suffering one degree or another from hopelessness and helplessness. So with all those numbers in mind, you might find it interesting that there are 38,000 psychiatric hospital beds in the United States. 38,000. That the average treatment time for a heroin or opioid addict is 30 days. And that even if we started right now building some new infrastructure of hospitals, hospital beds, newly trained specialized psychologists and psychiatrists, by the time we did it all, even if we could do it in 10 years, 72,000 overdoses and 45,000 suicides would continue on. And then if you look at the success rates of, just in the addiction space, 13%, 13 of every 100 addicts that enter treatment are still clean within 12 months after leaving treatment. I think building more of what we already have and spending a lot of money to do it is not in our best interest if the best we can do is 13 out of 100 successes. So something else has to happen. Something else has to be done. And perhaps this issue, this problem of extreme suffering by an extreme number of people, is beyond the ability of a human being or in aggregate humanity to address successfully, because it is a condition of society that is not ordinary anymore. The individuals who are suffering in this extreme way are not suffering because there is something wrong with them or because they did something wrong. They are the part of society that is suffering because of society itself. And it would be somewhat foolish to expect that society itself could heal that which ails it itself. And in that case, I mean society could look at itself as a whole, diagnose that there's something wrong with it, admit that there's something wrong with it, then agree to whatever the treatment might be for whatever that diagnosis is, and then persist in that treatment until the condition is eliminated. So continuing to treat these people that are a reflection of society with society remedies is probably not going to have the results that we would like to have. And the longer we wait, the longer we have to deal with these extremely high death rates. What Stainless Souls, the realization of Stainless Souls, a church of recovery and discovery, aims to do is provide a path where hope can be restored in the lives of those suffering, and to provide a program, a series of steps or a series of activities that individuals can do in order to rebuild hope into their lives. The basis for that hope is the basis for existence. And that is that within each and every human exists a soul that is incorruptible. It is stainless. It cannot be harmed. It is immortal. It is eternal. And we believe that in teaching these truths to individuals who have lost hope, that a path will form for them where they can be optimistic and they can have reasonable expectations about their futures. And those reasonable expectations can be positive. In essence, the definition of hope. And in this case, when we talk about hope, it's not the hope where we say, I hope one day. In that case, hope is a wish. But it's more along the lines of, I have hope. And in that case, I have an expectation about my future that is positive in nature. The restoration in the minds, the hearts, and the souls of our congregation, the restoration of the fact that no matter what they've done, no matter how low they have stooped, no matter how they have felt about themselves or others at any point in their lifetime, none of those things have affected the incorruptible nature of their true nature. They are forever stainless. They are stainless souls. And from there, from that perspective, we can rebuild hope. And in the rebuilding of hope, we can recover from these conditions of addiction, codependence, PTSD, suicidal ideation, and homelessness. And from recovery, we can move on to realization of who and what we really are and why we're here. And from there, we can move on to full self-actualization, fulfilling everything that we are here to fulfill in this incarnation. These are the fundamental ideas that the realization of stainless souls is built on. We are built specifically for the most broken among us. And there is no one that would ever be turned away from us. We recognize each and every person as a whole, stainless soul. And we love each and every person unconditionally. We accept them into our family unconditionally. And we will work with them to recover from whatever ails them unconditionally. The realization of stainless souls. A church of recovery and discovery. Serving those suffering from addiction, codependency, trauma, suicidal ideation, and homelessness. Working to restore hope, hoping to restore the realization that every soul is stainless.